I remember watching this documentary on what's that town in Indiana, like the archetypal post-industrial. What was it? Gary, Indiana, and one of these anthropologists was talking about how America is a throwaway society because the economic boom happens in one particular geographic location and then it moves on. The whole towns move to accommodate some ever-present flow of capital, and so then the towns that are left behind get totally decimated, and the rotting industrial parks. And yeah, so
Burger Plant.
America has that particular
Yeah,
character.
that's one thing I notice a lot. One thing I like doing is I like just wasting time looking at the Google Maps. One of my favorite things to do is look around and look at all these dead cities. You see these places that like 100 years ago were normal towns, but now they're just ruins, ghost towns, because people moved away when the money stopped flowing in, when the opportunities dried up, and they just up and left.
Well, I
And it's
wonder if that's
completely
going to
dead.
happen with New York City. I don't think so, just because of the location that it's in. But I foresee that there's going to be some dark times ahead of us in New York
With
City.
all of the corona deaths.
Well,
Maybe?
not so much that as like again, if we're gonna be able to get that together, as much as just I think that the leadership in New York City, specifically with De Blasio, has not been doing that well. Like we didn't have as many protests and riots as occurred in other cities, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I think it gave New Yorkers pause and also made them think that if we're going to have this extended lockdown, plus on top of that, we're going to have these riots going on, why would I want to live here? You know, or at
Well,
least for the time
what
being.
about you? What about you personally? What are you going to do?
Okay, me personally, I have a few plans in mind. So I am going to be going away to another place. I'm not going to say what yet. That's we're going to find.
For OPSEC
Yes,
reasons.
we're gonna find that out real soon though. Don't worry. But that's going to be the next plan right now. I do want to get a place in Manhattan as well. That would also be a permanent residence. As far as when that happens, this is why I'm just watching the waters right now to see how things are going to go. At this point, I just don't know. But I keep hearing the same thing from a lot of people, that people are going away from New York.
Same thing is happening in the DC region. You have a lot of, especially in DC. DC is still not. I mean, in Maryland, we're still in phase 2. DC is barely in phase 2. So literally, you have people who are leaving out of the city, especially since no restaurants are open, no bars and clubs are open. There's no like great lifestyle stuff to do. So you have a lot of people that are packing up and shoveling out of town. I intend to get out of this region as quickly as I can. But what happens in areas like this is that there's just gentrification. So you have predominantly black areas because you'll have a lot of people losing their houses or losing their apartments or whatever. They were already moving a lot of the black people out of the city. So you'll have these people leave because if you get a DC housing voucher, you can use it in 40 states plus Canada. So you have a lot of people leave out of DC, black people with their housing vouchers. They go to other places, and 9 times out of 10, they're not going to come back because the housing that they're going to build is just not going to be affordable, and it's not going to make sense to come back to this area if nothing's going to be reopened. And the mayor of DC has really just decided to decimate the economy of the entire region, because as long as DC's not open, I'm right across the street from DC. My county's not open. The county on top of us is not open. Most of Northern Virginia is not really open. So they're just destroying the entire economy of this whole region. And it kind of is insane to me because if you hated Trump, I mean, see, because we never had, like in 2008, everyone else had a recession. We never had a recession here. We had a boom, a huge boom in 2008. And the size of government, like what, doubled or something like that. And basically that's all government workers who were here or who imported here. And so, yeah, I don't, I see a lot of people just moving out, especially if they're not going to reopen schools. Like I said, I had a lot of black women who told me, you know, you got to send your kids to school, whatever. But now nobody's going to school. So a lot of people will just, I think they're going to leave. And I think that these places are just going to be I don't know what the bankers have planned. I mean, I wish I could figure it out, but I don't know who they're going to get to move here. This is especially here. DC is crazy hot in the summer, ice in the winter. I mean,
Yeah.
we get
So do
not
you
as
think
bad
this
as
is
New
going to be
York.
something bad for sort of the system itself, or do you think it's going to be an opportunity for the system to branch out into these rural communities where people are going to be moving back to?
Oh yeah, definitely the latter. Because like really, it's been sort of good for multinationals and for governments. Uh, the perpetual lockdown, which again, as I keep reminding people, why it's so crazy to see, for example, mold bugs takes buying into the virus narrative, whereas the arch lefty during the Bush years, Giorgio Agamben, if you read his recent blog posts on how they're trying to basically use a state of exception to suspend all of life to the point where we're all pod livers and all businesses will be destroyed except for the hands of the very few corporations in tandem with governments that have the infrastructure to basically have on-demand shipping and so forth, like Amazon. It seems that as much as the pandemic has suspended a lot of the negatives of modern society, it just seems that the hopefulness that people for example, on Twitter thought that it was going to produce, the fruits have been sort of withered on the vine because now they're finding ways to further control people, which I find very concerning. So, but what Hotep Sophia you were talking about, I want to get your take. Have you ever heard of E. Michael Jones's theory of why how like basically the globalists destroyed a lot of ethnic enclaves in the cities by mass migration of black populations to the cities? Have you heard about this?
Yes, the Great Migration, and
Yeah, and how basically his theory, which is kind of against the sort of the white nationalist narrative, he says that the ethnic enclaves within the cities, like for example, I'm Italian, and so there was a huge Italian population, like in Toronto, for instance, and around Woodbridge, and then there was Polacks and there was other Russians and other people, and how basically they wanted to homogenize people. They wanted to waspify mostly Catholic European immigrants by forcing them into suburbs where they become deracinated, where they become rootless. And they did this by importing southern black populations into the cities. And it's almost like this weird, like proto gentrification, but it's even more screwed up because now gentrification is affecting black people again because you're getting these rich hipsters to move in here, these deracinated children of European immigrants. They're now moving back into those previous areas that have been that were predominantly African American. Sorry for saying black, but African American. And it's really crazy. I don't know if the statistics are that, but what is your perspective on it? Because he's using that from the perspective of how whites became deracinated, but now it's like they're establishing these gentrified strongholds against the black population. So it's really yeah.
Yeah, I think that it has worked in sort of all different directions. Like the goal is to just keep people moving so they can't feel at home. And so you do have like the Great Migration where people left from the South and went to the North. But from what I understand, the reason why people left the South and went to the North is because they sort of empowered the white people who were, and it's kind of weird because people don't, there were Irish slaves, so there were white slaves too. But for whatever reason, they empowered the white people to sort of have this superior behavior over the blacks, and so the blacks were moving to sort of just get away from that, and that's why you had a lot of them go from the South to the North, and a lot of people are, they were impacted by that. But where I'm from in the DC region, that didn't happen. A lot of people have come into DC and Maryland, but there's a lot of people who are from Maryland who either went further south to get because Maryland is extremely racist. So you have a lot of people who have gone further south to sort of get away from the racist white Northerners, which nobody, this is a thing that no one even thinks about, but to think that the whites were only racist in the South is completely devoid of actual understanding of history. I mean, it's just not the way it works. So you have a lot of people from this area who have gone further south or even west just to sort of get away from the racism that occurred in as Maryland being one of the southern states. So I think that theory is probably pretty accurate, and what they just keep doing is moving people around. So they can't figure out, and nobody can figure out anything about where they're from. And they do that too, in the collegiate level, because they want everyone to go away to college. Like, the blacks that they breed for college, they want you to go away. They don't want you to stay home. They want you to go away for school. And so once you go away for school, then you see, oh, this is what it's like to live in, a more, diverse area. So all of a sudden you have this sort of experience that you've never had, and you may never go back home. I know a lot of people who went, I have a friend that went to Florida for school. He's never come back. He's like, never, ever, ever am I coming back. And I'm like, I can see why, you wouldn't come back to Maryland. But so to me, I just went from one end of the county to the other end of the county for college. So I was still within the same region, but a lot of people, they left the area for school and they're like, I'm not coming back. I've experienced something that's much different. That's how people also lose, ties to their roots. So the whole system is set up to have people basically just lose complete ties to their history. It's actually pretty effective if your goal is to separate people from what they know and from what their stories are and from what their history is.